You are looking live.
Here comes the play. Goodman at the free throw line. Jumper.
Oh! He broke his ankles. He is Houdini.
Mickey Mantle don't care about you, so why should you care about him? Nobody cares.
That's not a good call. No.
You don't like that call.
I don't like that call.
Woo! 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 Not so fast.
Was the NBA trade deadline. That's come and gone. That's, that's behind us. And the Lakers didn't make any deals. They didn't. Nobody got traded. Not even Russell Westbrook. And at the moment, the LA Lakers are hanging on to a play-in spot. They're right now the 9th seed in the Western Conference. And you might think, okay, I mean, they're not doing terrible. They're I guess in it, right? And I mean, you're not wrong, but this was a team at the beginning of the year when they put together LeBron James and Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis and Carmelo Anthony and whoever else is on that team that hasn't really done anything this year. This was a team that all the geniuses thought that was going to be a team that that we'd see in the finals. I mean, that's all we heard about is, oh my God, look at all this talent, right? The LA Lakers, they're going to win the whole thing. It's not even close. And now we're all wondering, are they even going to make the playoffs? And I've touched on this in previous shows before, and I will stand by this. Russell Westbrook is just not a guy that he's very much like James Harden in the respect that he cannot coexist with other big stars. It's either his team or it's nobody's team. It's either his team or he leaves. That's how it goes. And the only difference is that James Harden actually makes some shots, and he's actually a pretty good basketball player. Russell Westbrook hasn't really done anything this year. He's gotten benched at times. He's gotten booed off the floor. He's been, the LA Lakers crowd has literally shouted no when he goes to take a shot. I mean, it's everything with the kitchen sink being thrown at this guy. And, you might start to feel for him a little bit, but I mean, bottom line is he's got to be more of a team player. He's got to be doing whatever it takes for the team to win, and it's just not happening right now. Going into today, the Lakers are on a 3-game losing streak. As I mentioned, they're currently 9th in the West, and their next game will be against the current 4th seed Utah Jazz. Anthony Davis, the guy that Charles Barkley calls street clothes because he's always in street clothes. He's never playing. He's been back, but the Lakers haven't been. Since Anthony Davis has returned, the Lakers are 3-6. So not even Anthony Davis returning has been able to get them in the right direction. And, I think when you look at, hey, sure, the trade deadline's gone, right? But what about all these players that, got bought out of their contracts and then released and all that, right? Can they do something there? And there are a few guys that they might be able to get. Goran Dragic is a guy that's been floating around a little bit. That he's a guy that's been rumored about a little bit. But I don't think one guy is going to be able to fix this. I think that this is an issue that is just, frankly, there's not enough time, right, to get this done. I think at the end of the season, they're going to have to rethink a lot of different things. People are calling for Frank Vogel to be fired. I don't know if that's the issue. I'm not really sure. Because, I mean, you look at the Lakers, and they've been going through head coaches like crazy, right? It was who was it before Ty Lue? I don't know who it was before him, but then it was him, right? And then it was, I believe they had somebody else, and then it was Frank Vogel. I don't know. There was a lot of moving parts there for a while. That's all I know. And I just think that this is a bigger issue than time allows this year. Sure, you might be able to get a few buyout guys. You might, give some younger guys an opportunity, but I think it seems that it may be too late for the Lakers to turn things around. In fact, check that. It is too late. It is too late for the Lakers to turn things around. They might be able to sneak in the playoffs, be one of the play-in teams, but beyond that, they're not going to get too much. They're not going to go too far. I just don't see it, because the Lakers can occasionally beat the teams that they should beat, right? They do that pretty consistently, I guess we'll say, right? That will be generous there. But anytime it comes to playing a big team, much less beating them, the Lakers just kind of fall apart, and things just can't really. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Frank Vogel. I don't know if it's. I mean, I think it's a combination of everything, but I don't know what the number one issue is. And I think the answer is you just kind of scrap things and start over. You know, whether that means LeBron James retires, whether that means LeBron James goes elsewhere, you know, and then everybody else kind of disperses, and then you just start over. There's a lot of directions you could go, and I'm not sure which way is the right way to go yet for the Lakers. Elsewhere in the West, it seems like there are 3 or 4 teams that are legit contenders to go to the finals. You know, Phoenix, Golden State, Memphis, and then, you know, Utah has, you know, Utah could be in that conversation. I'm not too sure just yet, but I know Phoenix, Golden State, Memphis, being the top 3 teams in the West, are certainly in that conversation. And after last year, right, where the Phoenix Suns made it all the way to the finals, they were up, I believe, 2-0 on the Bucks. Everybody thought this is the year. This is the year that Chris Paul gets his first ring. This is the year. And then Chris Paul didn't get his ring. And then the Milwaukee Bucks win 4 games, and then they take the series. But the Phoenix Suns are back. They're the best team in the league this year. They did not get discouraged by their collapse from last year in the finals. And for the most part, it's the same team from last year. So I think, you know, you look at this team and it's, you know, hey, you got there before, right? You can certainly do it again. And I think there are a few teams standing in the way, obviously Golden State and Memphis. You know, I think the most intriguing team, I should say, right now is Golden State. Because, you know, sure, last year they had Steph Curry back, but this year they've got Klay Thompson back. You know, he's finally back after what seems like a million years being injured. So he's back. Andrew Wiggins has been playing really well this season. Draymond Green is not trying to do too much anymore. He's not trying to be one of the superstars. He's really kind of figured his role out. He knows what he needs to do, and he's doing just that. So Golden State is kind of putting together the perfect storm here, and you know, I think a best of 7 between Golden State and Phoenix, that would be amazing. I don't watch too much NBA, but that is a 7-game series that I would watch without a doubt. And Memphis is a team that has really been surprising a lot of people this year, right? Everybody knows that Ja Morant is good. You know, we all know that what his talents are, but there are other players on that team that are just kind of doing what they need to do, kind of a lunch pail, you know, everybody pitches in kind of mentality. And Memphis right now is the 3rd best team in the West. I know that they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. But I just don't see them being able to go all the way just yet. Maybe in the next few years, but just not this year. And I think the West right now is kind of at the point where you've got 3 teams at the top, right? I just mentioned them. Phoenix, Golden State, and Memphis. And Utah is kind of, you know, on the brink of getting into that conversation. But I think you could kind of group them into the next group where it's teams that are good, but are they that good? You know what I mean? They are good, but are they great? Are they good enough to make a run to the finals? And I think you look at a team like Utah, Dallas, and Denver in that conversation. And then I also look at a team like, and this may sound crazy, but I believe in this, the Minnesota Timberwolves, a young team, a lot of new pieces on that team, but they're right now the 7th best team in the West. You know, of course, that would mean they would be in the play-in tournament, but they're a team that I think could surprise a lot of people. Now, how will that team do in the postseason is another conversation. But all I know is that this is a team that nobody really paid too much mind to entering the season, and they've played some pretty good ball. But as I mentioned, there are a lot of other good teams in the West, and I think there's just too much traffic, ahead of them in the West for them to kind of, if it was a few good teams, I'd say, okay, I think you can kind of sift through that and, beat some teams, and you might be able to pull it off. But there are a solid, 5 teams ahead of them that you can make a case for getting to the finals, or at least getting to the Western Conference Championship. And I think that's just too much for a young/new team in Minnesota to get through. I think they're going to give some teams some real trouble. I think they're going to give some teams some real heart attacks, but I don't know that they have what it takes to get to that next level. The Dallas Mavericks are another very intriguing team as well, because Luka Doncic, we all know what he's capable of, but I think this could be the year that possibly he takes that team to where they want to go. The Western Conference is just one of the more intriguing and exciting races right now, because as I mentioned, you've got Phoenix and Golden State at the top, right? And then you've got Memphis, who we're not really sure if they're ready to be in that conversation for being one of the top teams in the West, or if they're just kind of just playing some good ball and then they're going to get it handed to them once they play a really legit team. And then they got Utah, who we know they have some talent there, but can they get to that next level? They've had this talented team around for a while, but once they get to the postseason, they can't really, it doesn't come to fruition in the postseason. They get stood up. Can they finally break through? And then the Mavericks, with a young talented core, can they get through? Can they somehow carve a path for them to get to the to make a run in the West? There's so many good teams that it's where do you start? I don't know. I don't know which team is going to be the team that goes. I think the honest, easy, vanilla answer is Phoenix, Golden State. But the real answer is any one of those teams can do it, right? Because, whoever the second seed is, they might catch Minnesota, who's going to be a tough out, right? Minnesota might, give some teams some real trouble. Utah might, be able to hang tough with a team like Phoenix or Memphis. And, the same principle can be applied to a lot of different teams. So not only is that top 7 race really intriguing, but the play-in tournament is really intriguing as well. Minnesota right now is that 7th seed, as I mentioned. The 6th seed is Denver. Can Minnesota continue to play some really good basketball and potentially get in the top 6 and force Denver to have to play in the play-in spot? How crazy that would be. I don't know. The play-in spot is very intriguing as well, because you got right now Minnesota, the LA Clippers, the LA Lakers, and then the Portland Trailblazers. We already touched on the Lakers a little bit, how they're struggling. It's going to take a lot for them to be able to hang on to that 9th seed, or be able to stay in the play-in, in that group of 4 play-in teams. Especially, not only just because they're struggling, but also because they have the toughest remaining schedule left. Right? They're already struggling. They're struggling. They're struggling as it is. Give them the hardest remaining schedule. It could get interesting. The LA Clippers are a team that, they have good players, but they're hurt. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, they're all hurt. So they're kind of banking on that next man up mentality, hoping that those guys can kind of get things to go their way. I'm sorry, hope that they can get those guys to step up and play good basketball as well. They're a team that is very interesting, because everybody knows that Kawhi and PG are out. So I think a lot of people are counting them out. But the fact of the matter is they have some good players, right? Their next man up mentality is working right now as much as it to get them to this spot right now. But I just don't know if they can make any sort of run in the postseason. And then the Trailblazers, right? They just traded away C.J. McCollum to the New Orleans Pelicans, and that was a surprise, because I never quite thought that C.J. McCollum would leave Portland without Damian Lillard going with him. That was kind of a dynamic duo that, CJ and Dame were just kind of, that was it. That was Portland. Everybody thought of Portland Trailblazers and said, okay, CJ and Dame. Well, now CJ's gone to New Orleans, a team with, I believe, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart. Like, New Orleans has not lived up to expectations this year for sure. But they are the first team out of the play-in race. They're right there. And after losing CJ McCollum, you have to be wondering how another team that has been struggling in Portland, in the Portland Trailblazers, are they going to be able to, are they going to be able to, are they going to be able to keep things going? Are they going to be able to, to succeed without CJ McCollum? I think that's a tough one to gauge right now. It's going to be a very interesting and evolving story, developing story, I should say. And, I think the Pelicans, now that they have CJ McCollum, I know they're going to be without Zion Williamson for most likely the rest of the season. But for me, there's no reason that the New Orleans Pelicans cannot make a push to get in the play-in tournament, in one of the play-in spots. And quickly before we hit commercial break, I would say that the Sacramento Kings could make a push, but they got rid of Buddy Hield and Tyrese Halliburton. Like, I know that things weren't going amazing for Sacramento, but it wasn't going terrible where they had to get rid of two terrific guys, especially Buddy Hield. I didn't get that one. That was a head scratcher. And no disrespect to Domantas Sabonis, but I just don't see it from Sacramento this year. And I think this is going to be an offseason where either Sacramento builds up and they build a contender, or they start over and they just scrap everything, get rid of De'Aaron Fox, get rid of everybody they have, and rebuild. Which is a real shame because they had a good thing going, right? They were never the best team in the league, and then they dropped off and had to rebuild again. They were just a team that always kind of stunk, and they had to rebuild. And they were finally getting some traction in that rebuild, and then they trade away two of the better guys that they had. I don't get it, and I don't think I ever will. So maybe they're just gonna be a constant team that's garbage. Who knows? But that trade where they traded away Hield and Halliburton, that made me scratch my head a little bit.